All right, this was a playbook trade I took on Life on September 14th. This is a drug company. The trade is a short trade. I call it the first red day because it's the first red day in a move. This was on day two. The day doesn't matter specifically so much as how it's trading. Um, the thesis for this is looking for overextension on the daily time frame, and then intraday I'm looking for overextension to fade a move on the backside intraday to some sort of average price. What I'm looking for before I get in, I have a couple criteria, just two things here. So the stock has to be opening over 30% of the first day's previous close. This one was, and then the stock on the day that I'm trading it has to open within 5% of the pre-market high. The reason I like the stock to be opening near its highs is because I feel as though this pre-market trading in here, the volume is a lot less. And if it's really getting overextended like it is right here, I don't think the support necessarily is there because the volume is so little. And when you start to see it start sliding down, I really think this is a good signal that the momentum has shifted because there's not all the volume like you have on the normal intraday times where you would have maybe some support from this trading. So I really like to see it open high and then quickly the momentum will shift and the support really won't be there from pre-market. Um, kind of looking back at the daily chart here, the and just a couple things to note here. So the company filed. One thing I like to look at is dilution and stock and paper that could be sold onto the market. The company had a filing for a 75 million mixed shelf back on August 11th, which is this day right here. So if we're just thinking about, has the company had a chance to use their shelf? I would say most likely not, because look at this volume. You're getting around maybe 100,000 average daily volume. Um, how are they going to sell $75 million worth of securities when they're getting barely any volume? So I thought this was also a good sign that this would be a good opportunity for them to liquidate with some actual volume. Um, so we were gapping up, making 52-week highs on the longest possible time frame. They've just been completing reverse split after reverse split, and we I don't even know if this is necessarily accurate because they've just been doing reverse splits, shrinking the float and then raising again. So not the best company to be invested in. Um, looking at the fundamentals and the catalyst of the company. They had the 75 million mixed shelf, which I noted. They didn't really have any warrants or preferred stock, anything of that sort that I took note of. This was their cash, their liabilities. They didn't have any income, and then this was their 6-month operating expense for 2021. I just took their burn rate of 2.8 million was my estimate. They don't have a ton of cash, but they have a lot of securities. They're invested in debt securities of 41 million. So here I have it broken down by value and maturities. So these two are maturing within 1 year, and here's their value. So this number, I added up the cash, I added up which securities were maturing within a year, and then divided that by this monthly number. I got an estimate of 9 months left of cash as of June 30th. And then here was zero point 0.7 months if they didn't have this to account for at all. But what was kind of interesting to me was 17 out of 25 of these investments here were in gross unrealized loss positions, and I just think that's kind of a negative thing if 90% of what you're using to fund your business is losing money somehow. So I thought this was a really negative kind of aspect of their balance sheet. And then just looking here, another portion of that was they started the year 2021 with 16.9 million, and they're ending the 6-month period on June 30th with 2.1 million. So they're low on cash, and these are also losing value. Um, and they didn't really break down how much loss is unrealized or anything of that sort, but I don't know if that's super important. It's just good to note that I think that um, this isn't a confident thing for them. They're not, I don't think they're necessarily confident about using this to fund their business. Um, and that's why I think maybe they would use some of this mixed shelf. Um, so their data for the catalyst was on a drug that treats sarcoidosis, which is some sort of lung disease where you kind of get some irritation in the lungs. Maybe you get some sort of rash and some bumps. It can also develop on the outside of your skin. It can mimic other diseases, and diagnosis has to be made by doing other tests. You have to rule out other diseases before you can diagnose this disease. Their drug had no signal of immunogenicity, which is a good thing. It's saying the drug worked how it was supposed to work. It didn't have adverse reactions in the immune system. Mostly no serious side effects. Again, that's a good thing for the drug. Um, but then I'm looking, a lot of these companies, are they really making a drug, even if it may work or even if it may have potential to work? Is it really a drug that's needed? So many common treatments for this illness is taking corticosteroids. And they noted in their results, the company said complete steroid taper to 0 milligrams was achieved and maintained for 33% of their patients. So the goal, I would think, of the treatment would be to use, the treatment entirely instead of the steroids. And if they're only getting 33% success on getting people off corticosteroids, I think 33% success rate is quite low. So I don't know if that data is necessarily that positive. Some other things to note: the disease is said to go away. If it's not serious, it can go away on its own after a period of years with exercise and correct eating. It can cause some other diseases and some cancers. All in all, I kind of noted, it does not look like this drug result will lead to near-term revenues. And this, I think, is an important conclusion to make when these companies come out with PRs of drug data, is whether or not this drug is going to lead to near-term future revenues, and I didn't think this would. One other thing here I noted was in this trial they had 37 patients. That's really, really lackluster. And then a year ago, they did the same exact trial on the same exact drug, and they had 36 patients. So I was just, kind of looking at the company's history. Click on this link real quick. Somewhere in here, it read, um, same same drug, same trial, and they have 36 patients. So then they're doing it again in 2021, same drug, same trial. They can only get one more patient, um, and that's just really underwhelming. So anyone who's seriously looking at this company, like, the move is just not justified. So I don't want to get caught up in the fundamentals, but I do know I have a pretty good understanding of where the stock will eventually end up. Um, so kind of looking at the more technical side of things, the market cap was 155 million, outstanding shares was 16.9 million, the float, according to FinViz, was 13.7 million. The short float was not that high, which is good. It was only 3%. According to FinViz, the institutional ownership was 49.2%, and the borrows were, cheap enough. They were 2 mils. Um, and then kind of in the morning, the RVOL was 27. So that was that. And then technical analysis of kind of how I traded the stock. So yeah, like I said, I'm looking for it to open near its pre-market high, and when it starts to go red on the day, and what I mean by go red is it opened right here, and when it starts to come back down under that line, I'm looking kind of for that momentum shift. So opens near its high, tries to make a big push. This is the biggest volume on the day, and then right there is what I'm ideally looking for, is it to come back down, and then I'm looking to get in, risking these highs. So that's kind of what I did. Um, got in, risking the high after it came back under this line here, the red to green line, risking above the highs. Ended up going 1R in my favor, and then I put a stop for break even. That's one of my rules that I'm kind of testing out, is if a stock goes in my favor more than 1R, I have to put a stop for break even, and then if I get stopped out, I'll just have to get back in. So that's what ended up happening here, is I got stopped out for break even, let it do its thing. Saw it was coming back up again. This right here is the red to green line. Saw it was coming back to test this level, which I kind of believe is a key level for momentum. So put another order out to short there, risking. This time I was risking above. I was risking 12.65, which I was looking at this level right here. So 12.65 was right here, so I was risking above this kind of pre-market high right there. Put my order out, put my stop there, went in my favor. So then I was wanting to add. As you can see, we came lower than we did here. So we came a little bit lower, started making more lower lows. I knew I wanted to add size back up to VWAP, so I added more size as I was moving my stop down. Let it work in my favor. My goal was to kind of trade around a core until we got to this pre-market zone right here, um, where I wanted to have most of my size taken off. So that's kind of what I did. Um, took some size off here after we got this big flush. I just felt, if it's gonna do that, then it maybe would bounce at some point. So I just want to, when it's giving me a reason to cover like this, I just want to take some off. I saw it couldn't get above 11.31, so that's when I decided to put back size. Kind of got chopped up a little bit. And then another thing here, I used the 79 and 89 EMA, and when it started basing and bouncing off this, I took a little bit off. I didn't take all my size off, but I took a little bit off, just kind of relieve some psychological stress. And then I noticed, if you look on the 5 minute here, that I thought we're still, trading backside. We're still, I kind of zoomed out, and took a deep breath and said to myself, we're still on the backside. This was at this kind of time frame right here. We just rejected off this level that I had previously drawn the support right here, so we just rejected off that. I should probably add some size back on, and so I added just enough size back on, and I was risking above, like a penny above 11.61. I thought this was a key level. I thought if we get back above 11.61, then maybe my idea is wrong, and we're going to be trading in a different type of manner. So I put as much size as I possibly could right here while still keeping my stop above 11.61. Let it kind of trade, and then again on a big flush, I like to cover some profits, and then the momentum was kind of dying out, so I just covered again on a lower low, and then covered once more. Um, that's how I kind of traded it. A big improvement I would like to make is kind of testing how often the stocks come back to their previous close. So I would like to, hold on to a bigger piece of, not a bigger piece, but I'd like to hold on to more of my size for a greater amount of time and see how often does the stock come to this previous close. Because I think this is a important level right here where um, price may just gravitate to naturally, and I could probably hold some size here and cover at the end of the day versus getting flat right here. So I did follow my plan in terms of getting flat around this area, and I was able to get around let's see here. So I was able to get around a 6R on this trade, mostly from this add, right here where I added right here. This really boosted the trade, which I'm, glad I was able to see that. And that's where a lot of the, you know, reward came from. So this could have been a much bigger R. This maybe could have been 9 to 10 to 11 R if I had maybe held some towards this close, which I think is one of the main things to work on.